Hey everyone, welcome to the 15th episode of the Dose of Desi. Today is Sunday, November 13th, 2022, and I have two important announcements for y'all tonight. Both are a bit late, but we wanted to mention them. So the first is happy belated birthday to Udit.
Thank you. Thanks, man.
How do you feel now being older, another year?
Just living the dream. I don't know. More responsibilities for sure. I don't know. I think I say this every year because I'm an optimist in some ways, but I'm feeling there's good things coming this year. I literally say that like how many years have I known you? I've said that like every year almost, right?
Yeah. Well, hey, it's a good way to, kick things off right,
Yeah.
Um, nice. Well, happy birthday again. Wanted to mention that and celebrate that for sure.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
the second thing that I wanted to mention is happy anniversary to our podcast.
That's right.
Also a little bit late on that, but we wanted to celebrate that tonight as well.
That's right. Yeah, believe it or not, it's been a year. Well, what, like 15th episode you said, right? So
Yeah.
it's funny. When we first started, we said we'd do like one every 3 weeks, then we said like every 1 month, and here we are, our 15th episode. Hopefully we can keep finding ways to keep it going, keep it interesting, and go from here.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks, man. So yeah, believe it or not, like I said, it's already been our 15th episode. Before we get started, as we always say, make sure to share your thoughts, comments, and questions in chat box throughout the podcast. Since this is our like 1 year anniversary podcast, I think we started. Do you remember when we started? Like roughly end of October last year, right? 2021.
Yeah. So the first episode was posted on I have the date right here, October 30th,
Okay,
2021.
I was
Is
gonna
when
guess
it would have. So
29.
we started planning a little before that, of course, right? But yeah, first episode was October 30th.
Yeah, I remember right around that time. I was just in the whole midst of dating and heartbreak and all that stuff. So that's how I recall that. Anyway, but since it's been a year since we started the podcast, we thought it'd be interesting to kind of mix things up and start by looking in hindsight and sharing some of our thoughts on the past year.
Yeah. We definitely we have some interesting topics to cover later, but let's just reminisce a little. Let's reminisce and I think, really just thinking like 1 year in, you know, thinking about like the reason why we started this podcast, like how do you feel, after like, from, 1 year ago when we're like, let's do this thing. How do you feel about like from where we started to where we are now?
How do I feel? In terms of, I mean, in terms of the podcast or like individually?
Well, I guess for the podcast, like in terms of our idea, our goal of what we wanted to do, and sort of 1 year later where we are with the
Yeah, I think
podcast.
I think I think it's to some degree it's taken a life different from what I had envisioned, but I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. So like when the concept was when we first started, the whole idea was to like have deep conversations, which you already have, right? But I think we have deviated from that a bit, but added an element of more fun, like what interests us. And I don't necessarily think that's bad. I think sometimes we go into deeper conversations, which is great, and sometimes we touch on, heavy, deep, emotional things maybe. But we've taken a more fun route, or detours here and there, which I kind of enjoy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to I think what we sort of thought we wanted to do and where we are today. I think we've certainly set out on that path and have made some good progress in it. I think it's been fun to try to expand a little by having guests join us. I think has added some interesting
Yeah,
elements to the podcast. So certainly have enjoyed just kind of the varying nature of how each episode still, while there's a general structure, each episode kind of does feel a little different to it, and so that's been fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree. Yeah, I think in terms of like favorite moments, what are, I don't know, since we're reminiscing, what are some of your favorite like podcasts or guests or moments that you've come
Yeah.
across?
So putting the caveat out there, if I don't want to like, single out one
Yeah,
person and like make other people feel bad or anything like that. But I will say one of my favorites as far as guests on the podcast was, I think, the conversation with Jason Bischoff.
yeah,
Because I think it was interesting to get a couple of different perspectives of sort of his career experience, his personal experience, and just, I feel like sometimes with the two of us, like when we're recording, also sometimes it's in the evenings, we're tired and stuff too, and having somebody that comes on that brings all this like just contagious, like enthusiastic energy, I think like
yeah,
really elevates things too,
yeah,
So I really enjoyed what he brought to that episode. And also, just real quick, speaking of which, because he mentioned, I think on the podcast, that he was going to do the voice of Batman for one of the Funko things. I actually ended up picking it up recently, so
oh,
here's his voice right here. I fight for justice. So that's Jason
oh,
Bischoff right there
interesting.
doing the voice. So a fun little thing like that, which I thought
Yeah.
was cool. But
I
um,
I definitely
yeah,
hear you on the like the energy vibe that he had for sure. Yeah, I felt that too. Go ahead. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
no, I guess, and then in terms of just other, podcast non-guest wise, or actually, I guess we did have a guest, so maybe not non-guest wise, but in terms of doing something a little different, I enjoyed the episode about Marvel. We're just kind of just geeking out and just kind of, yeah, just kind of enjoying and having fun and um, just seeing what's on the horizon for that whole world of things. I thought that was just a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
What about you? What were your
Yeah, I think
favorite moments?
Marvel was, yeah, can't talk. The Marvel one was fun as well. I think some of the moments that I remember, um, the first podcast that we had with a guest, that was with Kim, right? I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed that. I don't know. I just feel like Kim is a very positive, upbeat person. I mean, we touched on a little bit of, some of the struggles that she's had as well, but I like her energy, just like her vibe. She has a good sense of humor as well. Hearing about travels, I mean, I'm kind of big on the whole travel cultures, exploring and all that kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed that. I remember, I think it was Eric that was on as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was it his the podcast where he showed us some of like the picture or like
All his
the
like
drawings?
samples, graphic design stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just trying to make sure that that was the right podcast. But yeah, I enjoyed seeing that just because we always we always have like faces here, but we haven't really explored much of doing something else with the video aspect of our podcast. So that was something I was shooting for and really enjoyed seeing. And trying to think. Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting. I've gotten glimpses into the comic book world that I never really thought I would get, that I never really plan on getting either. Like, how a comic book is made, how the stories are written. It's been interesting, and I like that. I like that. Initially my vision was more closed than what we ended up doing, and I'm glad we did what we did. So thank you, Hassan, for for that. Actually,
It's been fun to kind of just see it evolve and see, and some of it is just trying to figure out who would be, interesting to hop on the podcast and kind of
yeah,
taking suggestions, ideas, that sort of thing. And so I think that's been really cool. I do also just want to mention shout out to Joel in the chat since he popped in there as
Oh,
well.
I don't even have the chat
Joel
open.
just said what's up, happy birthday Udit, and happy 1 year anniversary,
Thank you.
guys. How has it been a year? It still feels so fresh.
Yeah,
All right.
it's wild, right? Time's flying.
Yeah,
Actually, I'm
because I
gonna.
think one of our earlier episodes was also about like the pandemic and stuff too, and how we dealt with all that. It feels like
This is how this.
like I don't know, it's interesting. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of it's always fun to see when people pop into the chat and say hi. So thank you to the people that have done that over the last 15 episodes.
That's
It's
right.
always appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Joel.
Yeah. So I guess do you have any, thoughts in terms of, now we've done a year of this podcast, and like looking ahead, what are some of the types of, things you'd like to do or goals, that you want to like put out into the world and see if, hopefully we get to do something like that.
Am I
Any
allowed to
goals for this
share like
podcast?
some of the plans that we've been thinking of, or I don't know how much of a spoiler do you want me to?
I think the only thing I would probably pause on is in terms of like maybe naming specific guests and things in case
Okay.
like that falls through, But otherwise, yeah, I think we can talk about ideas of stuff for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we're keeping it like big picture, without naming any specific guests or anything like that, um, I think one idea that I've wanted for a while, I've got to get Hassan on board with this. I think he might be on board a little bit. I want to do a podcast in person with like a camera, and where we're having a conversation face to face rather than. I mean, I know this medium is easy and convenient and all that, but I think it'd be nice to sit down and have a chat. I
Wait,
don't. Have you
didn't
already
we
done that?
have one in person? I think we did have
Did
one in
we?
person. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Wow.
at my what episode was it? I'm trying to go back now and see what.
Face to face.
Oops, sorry, as I'm pulling up the channel, I'm
That's
pretty sure we
chaos.
did one in person. I thought we did.
I thought we did too, but maybe we did it at your house, but it would be fun to do one face to face with a guest.
Yeah, our second episode,
Was
pivotal
it?
moments.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think maybe doing another version of that in this upcoming year, but like mixing things up a little bit, maybe with a guest, maybe something else. Maybe I don't know, out in the field somewhere doing something. That'd be kind of fun. uh yeah, I don't know. That's one idea. Another idea is, I think there are still many topics and subjects that we can get either really deep about and nerd out about that we haven't really touched on. So I think expanding that a bit, and touching on topics and having guests that uh maybe kind of like different from what the norm has been for us would be interesting. Maybe like, for one of the tech things that we do, actually being like out in the field, like, I don't know, but why don't we go to like a tech expo or something, like that'd be fun. I don't know, but I don't know if there's one coming, but we can find out. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, just these are some of my thoughts. What about you?
Yeah, I think I would certainly like to expand on like the type of content, right? Whether that's other types of guests, do different things. Like this year we kind of experimented with almost like straight up interviews versus like people presenting stuff, like Eric kind of did with his work. We did a little in person, we kind of experimented a little with that, but I'd like to, you know, um, see more of what we can do and try different styles, different things to see what works, what doesn't work, but just to like continue to expand on that. And yeah, I mean, I think just keeping it open to seeing what comes our way.
Yeah, I have an
Yeah.
idea, but it's not appropriate for me to say right now, so I'll share it with you after.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fun idea though. Anyway, yeah. By the way, Joel and anyone else who's watching, if you have any ideas, I don't. Do you remember where Joel lives? Does he live around here? I don't think so, right?
Um, he doesn't. And I don't know. I don't know how much I want to say in case he's not super comfortable with. I don't know
No,
how
no,
much he
that's
shares or
fine.
not.
But he's out of state, right?
But he's out of state. Yes,
Right.
yes, he's out
Okay.
of state. Yeah, I would love to. I've known him for a while. Haven't ever met him in person. So, stuff like
Yeah.
that would be kind of cool too.
It would be fun to loop you and Joel if you're listening, you know, into one of these conversations. You've been supporting us from the start. So I think that'd be fun to do if you're up for it. You know, again, based on your comfort level, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for sure. Let us know. Let us know, Joel. Um, yeah, that was. I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything else specific to think about for the anniversary. 15 episodes, like, I don't know, when you hear the number 15, you think of it over the course of the year. In some ways, it seems a little small, but at the same time, if you look back at all the stuff we've done, it also does feel pretty varied. And I feel like we've done a decent amount in that time. So it's cool to look back on and think about that.
I mean, it's a good chunk of episodes for like a season, right? It's like, you know, I don't know, seasons last from like 6 to like 18 or something, right? So we're like kind of somewhere on the higher end of
We're
that.
starting season 2 now. This is the season 2 premiere right
You
now.
know, that's what it kind of feels like to me. At least, you know, in my head, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, the next chapter, the next year. Like, I think also one last thing I'll say about the whole reminiscing thing is I think I've become a more comfortable speaker in terms of how much I'm willing to talk on camera. And also, I think my current new job also helps with that. And I think this whole like podcasting is also helping me with my job. So it's been interesting trajectory in terms of that kind of growth. But I'll just leave it at that. Any final
Nice. That's
thoughts?
cool.
Yeah.
Um, no, I don't think I have any other specific things. Oh, Joel, he says I live in Utah, Salt Lake City. I would be
Oh,
down. It would just have
nice.
to fit on my schedule and timing. I'm 2 time zones behind you guys. Thanks for the
That's right.
consideration. Yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk.
Yeah,
We'll make
yeah.
something work.
Let's get in touch for sure. Well, with that, let's move on to kind of like our meat and potatoes of our episode. And for the remainder of the episode, or for the remainder of the podcast, we thought it would be fun to talk about some recent events pertaining specifically to the realm of technology, because as many of you may know, we kind of nerd out about technology. Uh, so yeah, Hassan, you want to take it over?
Sure. So what we wanted to do as we talk about some of these things is pull up some articles. Now, I happen to select an article that when I pull it up now, it's asking me for a subscription to like the New York Times.
Oh gosh.
So let me just quickly find an alternative. I'm sure there's a ton of different articles on this one here. So essentially, while I'm trying to figure out I'm just going to pick something different. Okay, there we go. We'll just pull a Washington Post here. So the first topic was essentially on the whole Twitter stuff that's been going on. Can you still see my screen, by the way, right
Yeah.
now? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So essentially, just to give a quick high level summary for anybody that may not have been keeping up with the news. I don't know what's going on.
His dance moves
thing.
are
All
so
right.
awkward.
But yeah, Elon Musk has acquired Twitter for $44 billion. So if you're not aware, he now owns Twitter and has been making a lot of changes since that point as well. There was a whole lot of back and forth that happened up until the acquisition, but it did go through. He now owns Twitter and has started to make some changes to the platform. So yeah, I guess I don't know if you have any thoughts at first on because I know you don't really use Twitter and stuff, but I don't know if you have any initial thoughts or anything on
I
on
mean,
this news.
it's just interesting, a tech company buying another tech company in a way, like, or like a CEO of a tech company buying out another tech company. But I don't know. It's been so far everything I've heard, and again, I'm not that knowledgeable about Twitter. I have an account, but I never use it. But so far, everything I've heard, it's kind of disaster after disaster after disaster. Like people quitting, people suing him, people just, leaving the platform, going to other platforms. So yeah, it doesn't sound pretty, but I know even when it was proposed, what was it, like earlier this year, like months ago, right? And then it fell
Mhm.
through, and then it came back um, to the whole, it's going to happen again. Even when it was proposed, it was like a very controversial thing. So um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I think everybody remains like it remains to be seen what his definition of free for all is. What is free speech? And I don't know. I think free speech and all that kind of stuff goes beyond just online platforms, but that's just my opinion. I'm a little bit old school. But I know, Hassan, you've been a longtime Twitter user. How do you think this Twitter deal and Elon Musk being the owner of Twitter will affect the platform?
Hmm. So I will try and hold myself back, and I will just say I think this is one of the worst things to ever happen to Twitter. I am not happy about this decision. For many different reasons. I'm not going to get into all the specific stuff with Elon, but I'll just give one example of how something's been handled. And I think a lot of people have been upset about this sort of thing is Twitter had a whole verification system.
Mhm.
And the idea was you can submit, and if you fit certain criteria for, like certain politicians or celebrities or journalists or people that, are a bit more notable, have a following and need some way to verify themselves so that there aren't any like fake accounts or people impersonating them, things like that. If you got the check mark, you've been verified, you're the real account. So that's been a pretty valuable tool that's there to help sort of just combat just anybody pretending to be anyone. And immediately, one of the first things Elon Musk did when he joined is, well, one, he fired like a ton of his staff and all that too, so they couldn't even keep up with a lot of the process that was going on. But he ended up deciding to scrap the whole verification process. And Twitter Blue has a subscription thing that they do, where if you subscribe, you can like edit tweets and have a couple little features. But he basically said if you subscribe to Twitter Blue, now you get the check mark. They're no longer doing a check mark to show that you're verified. So essentially, instead of it actually meaning, that this is a real account, that sort of thing, it now just means you paid money. So it essentially took away the whole purpose behind it. And obviously, a lot of people were upset. There were immediately a ton of accounts popping up, um, like pretending to be others. I think there were a bunch of like companies that really like lost a lot of money and stuff too because there were other fake accounts pretending to be them, and tweets went viral and stuff. Like it was kind of a bit chaotic. And then they ended up saying, Elon's like, actually, okay, we're going to add a second little badge that says official. And official means you're actually verified. So now there's a check mark, but then there's an official check mark, which means that you're actually verified, but it's a little vague as to how you get that. It's just made it a little confusing. So that just popped up. And then the next day, people were complaining because that's kind of messy. And he's like, no, we're not doing that. We're taking that away. We don't need the official mark. That's dumb. We're just Twitter Blue. That's the only way to do it. You pay, you get the check mark. And then suddenly, a day or two later, it pops back up again. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the final decision is, but I think the official thing shows up sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. I guess you have to pay to get the check mark. It's kind of a mess, but it's really kind of brought about a lot of challenges for people that have notable followings and people impersonating them and things like that. So that's just literally the first thing, and just literally every day, every time I'd log on, there'd be a new update and a new change. So it just kind of seems really
Don't
chaotic.
log on. I'm
And
kidding.
yeah, well, yeah.
I'm
So
just, I'm just
I
joking.
think, yeah, I think like that's just one example of many of like how this is going. And
Yeah.
as Twitter's kind of my main social media, platform where I do to keep in touch with people, I'm hoping that you know, there's some structure that comes to all this, but we'll see.
Okay, I guess in the grand scheme of things, all things Twitter, do you think it'll improve or worsen with time?
Um, I think it's going to get worse at first. Maybe down the road things might improve a little when he realizes that there's a bunch of, he's losing a bunch of advertisers and other things. And if he wants to like start to gain back some money and stuff, he might have to change his tactic a little, or he ends up getting kicked out or something. I think that's the only way I see things changing. But
can he
I don't.
get kicked out? Didn't he just buy? Like huh? I don't know how this
Well, I mean, I
board
guess.
stuff and CEO stuff
Yeah,
works.
I don't know if there's a
I'm
way around that
curious.
or not, but I guess my point is if he ends up leaving or something is maybe, but I guess we'll see if enough damage has been done or not
Yeah.
during that time. I don't foresee it getting any better. But at the same time, I'm not planning to leave at this point because there isn't really a good alternative. Um, so we'll see, if there's another alternative or something that pops up down the road. But as of now, sticking around and praying for the best, but we'll see.
Cool. Cool. Any thoughts? I know I'm kind of maybe going into the future of Twitter real quick, but any thoughts on? I know Elon Musk has been big on crypto, and Jack Dorsey was big on crypto, and they both talked about monetizing platforms using crypto and all that stuff. I don't know how much you know about that, but any thoughts on that? Because I know a lot of people are like freaking out that that's going to be like the next platform, or since he's the owner of Tesla and SpaceX and all these other companies, how like do you think both on the crypto front and on the Tesla, SpaceX, or any other companies that he owns front, do you think he's going to try to incorporate Twitter into that somehow? I don't know how you would incorporate a social media company with a car
I
company,
mean,
but who knows?
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah.
Twitter's already done a little bit with like, I think it's through Twitter Blue, or I don't know if it's separate, but you can get like an NFT profile picture or something like that as well.
Mhm.
But getting into like true cryptocurrency, I guess they haven't done it yet, I don't think, but
No,
yeah, I wouldn't be
it'll take
surprised.
time.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Gotcha.
So I guess we'll see.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. And do you think the exodus from Twitter will continue?
Um, I do, but also I heard recently like they're trying to hire back some of the people that they fired because I think they
Bye.
realized
Oh, no,
like,
no, no. Come back, come back.
oh wait, we actually probably need some people to help run this thing. So yeah, I don't know whether how many of those people will actually come back or what. So I think more people will leave, but we'll see how quickly they can replace that team, I guess. Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, I guess let's move on to our next topic. Do you want to take it away, Hassan?
Yeah, for sure. I am pulling up the links here. So essentially, the next one we want to talk a little bit about. So all these things, by the way, are kind of just recent like tech sort of stuff that we thought was kind of interesting. And so one of the other trends that seems to be popping up lately is with streaming services. Everybody really transitioned. Let me share this way real quick. Everybody transitioned, not everybody, but a lot of people transitioned away from like cable TV to get to streaming services because it was more affordable and you could really choose the ones you wanted. But now many of them are raising prices. So Netflix is finally introducing an ad tier. So they thought, okay, let's get into the ad business here with some of this. And so they introduced a cheaper Netflix subscription at $6.99 a month for their basic subscription with ads, which by the way, I think is only even like 720p or something like that too. It's pretty ridiculous. I wonder if they have anything on here. Yeah, and there's certain things that you can watch, certain things of ads in the middle of the thing. It's very like mixed. So you'll see every Netflix show has an ad at the front, but then also some mid-roll ads. There's a whole bunch of different, varying degrees of stuff there. But if you're an existing subscriber, just because they introduce a cheaper ad subscription tier doesn't mean you're safe. They bumped up the prices now on their existing tiers as well. Disney Plus is doing the same thing. Disney Plus also, so they have the Disney Plus Basic which is $7.99 a month. You get Disney Plus with ads. Disney Plus Premium, which was $7.99 a month, is now being bumped up. So if you wanted to keep the same price, you got to stick with ads. Otherwise, now you're going to $10.99 a month for the ad-free version of Disney Plus. And there's other services doing the same. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this whole trend?
Nothing good. I'll start with that. Uh, I just feel like it's another way for these companies to make money and profit. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not about this, increase rates and all that stuff. I mean, if you're getting ad money, don't increase the rates. Like you're gonna get money out of the ads anyway. Like, but obviously we live in a country where everything runs on money, really a world at this point where everything runs on money. So yeah, I don't know. I just get an icky feeling. It's just one of those things, to make them more revenue. I mean, I don't know about Disney Plus, but I know Netflix has been seeing their number of subscribers decrease for the last couple of years, like rapidly. So I don't know. I don't know how much that's gonna help. Did you say there's a free plan with Netflix with ads, or there's no free plan, right?
I don't think it's free. I think
Yeah,
you still have
so
to pay. It's just I forget
yeah.
how much. $6.99 is the
Yes,
cheapest
it's
one
like
with ads.
it's like another way to piss off your customers, with more annoying ads and have them pay money. So, yeah, they make money, but I don't think people are going to be happy with it in the long run, depending on how many ads they have. Like I remember, certain platforms and certain streaming services that I don't want to name right now, they started off and saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, okay, one video, two videos every once in a while," and then now it's like four ads, or I mean ads, not videos, four ads, five ads before like a minute plays. It's like, no, that's not feasible. Like I don't want to sit through that crap. So hopefully we'll see how well they manage it. I mean, if it's an ad in the beginning, in the middle, and the end, fine, that's feasible or whatever. But if it's like every 5-10 minutes you're watching something for 2 minutes, like people are gonna get pretty annoyed. At least people like me are.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I think like certain platforms, I'm a little more lenient in the sense of like for example, you take like a YouTube for example. Depending on what you're watching, the revenue to some of the ads will go towards content creators. So in some ways, it's like, okay, I get that I'm supporting some of the creators to an extent. I know YouTube gets a cut, but at least some of it goes to creators. But when you get to like Netflix and Disney, especially Disney, it's like y'all are like huge companies that you don't need any more of this revenue. I know they're all like, we're investing all this money into original software and all that kind of stuff, or original like shows and things like that. It's still it's getting it's getting to be a lot. I think I'm getting to that point where I may have to do the subscribe for a month or two on one platform and binge watch everything, and then jump to another platform, and then just kind of jump around versus just subscribing just constantly. I will say I have gotten to a point now where unfortunately I can't, ads just bother me for the most part. So most of my
Yeah.
streaming services,
Yeah.
I'm like I'll pay for it, but at the same time, then what's going to suffer is I'm not going to be subscribed to as many services at once. When it gets to that point, you got to cut back in some way, and that's where it's going to go for me. So I don't know if that ultimately is a net loss for them. Then if they're not getting revenue at all for certain months, we'll see how it plays out.
I
But
mean, my question is how is it, how's Pluto TV, right?
yeah,
How is it so different from that? I mean, Pluto TV offers free movies, right? And like, I mean, yeah, you're watching it on demand or whatever, but they offer on demand with ads too. Or do I like their ads? No, they're annoying as crap. But uh I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's just one of those icky moves that companies make to make more money. In my opinion,
mhm.
it's one of those icky moves that companies make to
Yeah,
make more money. But they're like, oh well, customers really screw you. We got to make more money. Sorry, like
yeah. And to me, it's also not even that. It's like, to me, there should be a bare minimum for a streaming service in my mind, like 720p in almost 2023 now for a streaming service like that. Like that should not even be a thing. Like honestly, like that's one of the reasons I pay for a higher Netflix tiers to get 4K content.
Yeah, I mean,
If I could cut down and have 4K at a cheaper price, but cut down on some other things, great, I would do that. But it's like they lock some of the things that I feel like should be more of a basic thing behind these higher tiers, and it just gets frustrating. But we'll see how they all end up competing eventually, and hopefully things get more competitive in that area, I guess.
yeah. And I mean, I'm like I said, I'm a little old school. I don't need Netflix in my life. It's not like a necessity. It's like one of those conveniences that that you enjoy having some movies to watch or whatever. But you know, hopefully it's not too annoying, but we'll see. But that's not to say, that companies can't go back to, older models. It could be that, they start off and, takes off initially and people are like, oh yeah, I'll pay $6 or whatever. And then people get annoyed with the ads and more people drop off, or, people get, I don't know, companies go
Yeah.
back and forth. So it could be one of those things, but who knows?
Yeah. True. Um,
So
so do you want to go to the next topic that we have?
yeah. I guess that I'm gonna actually take over for the next topic, and I think we have some stuff in the chat box, some spam. It looks like.
Oh, okay. I'll take a look.
Okay, I don't know what's going on here.
Oh,
Um, I didn't think we were that big of a channel to get spammed yet, but hey, all right, here we go.
it happens. It
Yeah.
happens.
But anyway, I thought it would be interesting, something that's been in the news recently, but not many people talk about, I don't think. It's not like the mainstream news, at least, is the idea of flying cars. Hassan, I don't know, growing up, how old were you when you like first heard of, flying cars? Obviously, like from movies, cartoons, and whatnot, right? And at some point,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I'm trying to think. I can't think specifically, but that's always just been kind of a part of like the entertainment culture is when you think about the future, it's always like flying cars. Like
Right.
that's like when you picture the future, that's what it always seems to be.
And so, well, like
Yeah.
when you were growing up, I mean, obviously everybody's heard of a flying car, or like, drones, or the Jetsons or whatever you grew up on, right? When you were growing up, when did you think, like, how old did you think you'd be when flying cars would come about? Like when you were young?
Uh, I don't know. I guess I didn't really like think about it too much. I was more interested in like other types of tech and stuff. I think like
Okay.
holograms and all that kind of stuff. Like seeing what that was like. But yeah, I don't know. It just always, because flying cars has always just continued to be a thing in media, even nowadays, is like the future. It just
Mhm.
always seemed like something that was just kind of like far away. Like I never sort of actually pictured myself flying around in a car. It just always seemed like, oh, that's what the future is, but I don't know what that future. It just always
Yeah.
seemed far away.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you think there will come a day when that's a reality? And do you think that we'll see the general public using flying cars or individual flying vehicles? I don't know. IFVs. I just made that
I
up.
think general public, I don't think it'll happen in our lifetime, but I think
Uh,
like certain test ones or like kind of like, like right now they test like fully automated self-driving cars in certain cities and things. Like I could see like certain, test locations or things that where that's done in our lifetime, but I don't think like the general wide audience will have flying cars in our lifetime.
okay, that's interesting. So the reason I ask is because I don't know if you've ever heard of a company. It's, I think, a Chinese company. It's called Xpeng, and they've come out with a couple of years ago, I think, before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and now like kind of the post-pandemic phase. I don't know if we're even in that yet or not, but um, they've been kind of testing out different drones and cars and whatnot, and apparently they flew a 2-ton eVTOL. So I think VTOL is vertical takeoff and landing, right? I think flying car successfully completes maiden flight. Any thoughts about this picture?
It's basically just a drone with a wheel. I mean,
Kind of tacky,
it's
right?
yeah. I mean, it's one of those like, oh, it looks super futuristic and interesting, but also like not practical at all. You know, like,
Uh-huh.
but looks interesting.
It does look
Um,
interesting. I mean, I think I don't know. They basically took a car, like a sports car, gave it, in my opinion, I'm probably gonna be a little harsh here, but took a car, gave it a nice like paint job,
well,
made it like futuristic looking, and then threw like four drone
yeah.
propellers on it and said, "Oh, fly."
So, question for you actually, that just made me think of this in terms of what are your thoughts on when you think flying car? Do you think something that flies but is also a car on wheels, or like actually just a flying vehicle? Because this is like a car that can fly, but if we're true flying car, like true flying vehicles, you don't need wheels and stuff to drive around. You know what I mean? Like, are we just purely flying like planes, but like with, like, but just using them as cars for mobility, or is it like a hybrid? It can drive but also fly. Like, what are your thoughts when you think future of flying cars?
I mean, obviously, in my head, we're not in like that far ahead in the future yet, but I okay, I'm gonna go in like full nerd mode here for a second, but I would think like anti-gravity technology, so something that hovers off the ground, one, and if it's able to do that, then it can take off, right? Uh, I think something that's more of a hybrid, but not necessarily with wheels. But I think the
Mhm.
human reality right now is everything that takes us around has wheels on it. Um, including airplanes and whatnot. So yeah, for the time being, something like this may work initially, but in the long term, I don't know. Like you watch Star Wars and you see like again, I know it's a futuristic concept or whatever, but you see cars, both on land going around and you see them flying, something along those lines. But or you see lanes around buildings like big cities like Chicago, New York. You see like lanes of flying cars, something like that is what I envision. But then
Mhm.
again, my vision of that has been influenced by media, movies, and all that stuff. So I'll be the first one to put that disclaimer out. What do you think? Actually, I don't know. I think more hybrid in a way.
Yeah. Um, I could see what you're saying. I do think them leaning more into true just flying versus with wheels, because when you have to do both, that
Mhm.
introduces a lot more complications. Like for example, obviously this is a super early thing, but giant propellers, when you go down onto a road, now you have to suddenly account for that giant mass of all the things to make it fly. So now you're kind of having to account for both scenarios versus if it's
Mhm.
more of purely flying, but it can kind of go down on land a little bit, then you don't have to worry as much about the wheels and making it drive properly. Like then it's less complicated in that sense.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I think we were kind of talking about this a little earlier when we were planning this too. To me, I think what like there's a lot of cool tech out there that's really like innovative, and these are some cool examples. I think what's going to hold things up is more like the law and kind of getting like you know the backing of like the sort of system, I guess, to like have these things in place. That's going to be the rate limiting factor, I feel like. Um,
Do you think do you think flying cars will take off with the public? I know but yeah, I don't know. Do you
yeah,
think people would actually want to use them, or do you think it'll just be like one of those like fancy things, kind of like I don't know, a bunch of inventions that came and went that people just didn't feel like using or safe using or whatever?
I I mean, obviously, it would take time, and like I said, I don't think it'll happen in our lifetime necessarily, but eventually, I do think so. Just because like the population's growing, things are getting more and more crowded. There's only so much you can expand on the ground. You have to go upwards, eventually
Or
to kind of
downwards?
scale with that, and or downwards, yeah. But I
Subterranean.
I guess I feel like upwards would be an easier sell than downwards. At least it seems fancier. It seems cooler.
Yeah.
Uh, um, so I do think eventually, yeah. But I think just like we're seeing now with electric cars and kind of people eventually adopting the technology, like people are getting around to it. They're getting to it, but it takes time to kind of really build out the infrastructure, the comfort, and all that, sort of thing. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, here's really quick, here's another Xpeng vehicle, electric flying car with autonomous capabilities. I think in my head this makes more sense than the other
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me see if I can hide this thing. Yeah, so like this to me seems more like a flying vehicle than just like, hey, let's, oh wait, no, that's another one, I'll share those in a second. Than this, which is just like, this is
Right.
more like, in my head when I see this, I think, oh look, it's a drone carrying a car across and it's gonna drop it off and that's it, like that's what it seems
Hmm.
like to me. It's more like a,
And that's probably what, like, the easiest way to get to it, which is probably why they did it, and also flashy and you get the headlines. But like, if you want to make a car fly, you attach things to it to make it lift up off the ground versus building something totally new,
yeah.
right? But yeah, I agree. I agree.
Okay, well, let me share just two more quick concepts, or actually, they're not concepts anymore. Some of them have been tested. One might be a concept. So this is another one. I forgot what this is called, but let's
Mm,
see. What this is called. I've seen this before, but it's basically another flying car, and this to me looks more like a flying car than any of the other two that I've shared. I forgot the name of this, um, but they've actually tested this. They've made flights with this, and this thing actually flies, and like the wings fold in when you're on the ground, and it's
mm,
pretty cool. Um, Here's another one, but they're nowhere near affordable yet for people like
right.
yourself and myself. 300 grand, things like that. This is that
Uh,
same car right here with like its wings folded up and stuff. So like you can see it's truly like a hybrid vehicle. It's, I don't know. This is more what I envision when I think flying cars. And then last but not least, this tacky looking thing. I don't know how you can call that a flying car, but flying car switchblade transforms from road legal vehicles to aircraft. Would you ever drive something like that?
I don't know about
That looks like,
that.
I don't know, man. It looks like something out of like the 50s or 60s or something. Um,
Well, it's probably like, yeah, we were to watch an old movie. This is probably what they would have envisioned a
right.
flying car to look like, right? That's what it looks like. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. It's interesting to say the least. Yeah. I don't like this design at all. It looks like a flying scooter. In my head, I'm thinking flying scooter. Like, um,
Hmm.
but anyway, just some things. How do I don't know how to make my screen stop sharing now. I don't know if you have that
Um.
because I hid my controls.
Oh. Let me see if I can somehow. Where's my? Oops. Stop sharing.
Yeah.
There we go.
Hey, thanks. I was like, I don't know how to stop. Um, but yeah.
All
Um,
right. Yeah. So I think we had one other topic on our list. Also, shout out to Tomman 256 Productions in the chat. He said hello. So hello.
hey,
Um, our last tech topic was about virtual reality. So let me share my screen. And essentially, virtual reality has been around for a while, and there's new iterations and things on it. But there's a few new things that are coming out or coming soon that I wanted to kind of highlight to see, like, where are we current state? Like, how do we feel like virtual reality is gonna, is the landscape gonna change much at all or not? So one, I'll start with, I guess, the Meta Quest Pro, because right now, I think this just released, or is a new headset that released, starts at 1,500. And so it's aimed at kind of like a higher audience. They're really like trying to make it very like business oriented as well, with all sorts of like collaboration tools and things like that. But $1,500 for, the whole headset and the controllers and things that go with it. Meta, obviously, I guess their cheaper alternative is the Quest 2, which actually I did end up getting a couple days ago. So we could, talk about that if we wanted to. But the Quest Pro is the big new thing.
How much
The
does that
Quest 2?
cost? Yeah.
So it's starting at 400 is, I think, the price now, because they raised it a little bit from what it was. So then there's the PlayStation VR 2, which is another one of the big headsets coming out, and that they just announced the release date and price. So it comes out February for 550. But keep in mind, you have to have a PS5, which is 500 right there. So essentially, over $1,000 for this whole VR thing. And this one is wired. There's one wire, but it is wired, and only for PlayStation.
As an Udit will be getting it 5 years later. Because I'm like 5 years behind on everything in terms of technology. Go ahead.
So that's that one. And then coming soon in the future, or next year, supposedly Apple's gonna be announcing and releasing kind of their first version of a VR AR headset. There's supposed to be a few different versions they're developing, but this first one's supposed to be like this high-end one aimed, more towards, I guess, higher end developers, and kind of like almost replacing a computer to some extent. So the price is said to be in kind of the between maybe 2,000, 2,500. I've heard up to maybe even 3,000, depending on the version that you get. So we don't really know too much about it, but they're supposed to be doing virtual reality and also some augmented reality features. And eventually their goal is to, in a couple of years, release glasses, and those would eventually replace your smartphone and kind of be like the next big thing. That remains to be seen, but again, very pricey as well. So I guess, where I wanted to start with this is like knowing where the landscape is headed and the price of all these headsets. What do you feel like is virtual reality ever going to become like a mainstream thing? And do you feel like what needs to get it to mainstream? Is it just lowering the price on these things, or are there certain like things that you feel like might help in getting virtual reality become more popular, or will it ever get popular?
I think there are multiple facets that I can think of. Price being one of them, newness being another. So, there's, I don't know if you've ever seen the curve of like adoption. There's like the newcomers, and then like the laggards that are always like way far behind. I mean, I don't know. Depends on how much and how useful these technologies are. Like right now, if it's only for video gaming, I don't, that's what I've seen it being used for. There are ads, like Meta has ads, that talk about how the metaverse will, be virtual, but it'll have a real impact, and all these like ads that I see every once in a while. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, when the computers came out, it took a long time for like people to hop on a computer, but now obviously we're much more familiar and comfortable with technology. So I don't think it's going to take as long, but I think it depends on the use of the product, and also how comfortable do people feel. I mean, I personally don't want to be strapped in the metaverse 24 hours a day, or even like 8 hours a day, at work. I don't feel like I want to have some goggles strapped to my eyes, for a long period of time. So I'm sure there are other people out there like me. I'm sure there are people that are different from me that are also out there, but I think I like more. I wear glasses, so I like the idea of that a little bit more, because that serves a purpose, and also doesn't make me feel claustrophobic. Like, like, oh my God, I can't
Hmm.
see. Oh, I'm stuck in here. Like, there are days I just feel stuck enough, like in my room with my two computer screens, like working. I really want to like strap in for this? Like, no, I don't think so. So we'll have to
Hmm.
see. But I think there's some innovative ideas out there. I think it does have some interesting applications, especially in certain industries and certain sectors. So we'll see. I don't know. Do you know? Actually, one of my questions is, do you know like what is Apple proposing to use these for, or Meta or PlayStation? I mean, PlayStation's obviously a gaming company, but like besides gaming, what are some of the things that they're talking about that you may have read about?
Yeah. So I mean, Apple, their long-term goal, I think, from what I've heard, is to really start to replace a lot of your other like devices, whether that's laptops, phones, other things, with just glasses or something more simple. You just put on, you have access to all these things wherever you go,
Yeah.
and utilizing augmented reality uh, more so than VR. So they're starting with VR because that's kind of been developed a bit more, and more, a little bit more um, mainstream, although not really yet. I don't know. Remains to be seen, right? And like how that ends up actually playing out, and what are the proper use cases, things like that. I think I agree in that, like, without a big selling point, it's hard to justify things. I think people will spend money even on things that are expensive if they can get the worth out of it, right? And I don't think people have that yet. I think for gaming and stuff, people do it, right? Like the PSVR, some of the stuff is expensive, but in compared to the market that's out there, like, prices in general, like you're getting more for the money slowly with some of these headsets, but it's still expensive. But gaming is gaming. You know what you're getting into. The MetaQuest Pro, I know they're like trying to like sell it as like a whole bunch of collaboration tools. They have like kind of meetings and things from these headsets. I just don't get how that like you have your own little virtual avatar here, like what that changes, you know what I mean, like compared to actually doing it in real life, I guess. Or if you can't, even just getting on a Zoom, like I'm not sold on it yet. In that, I think AR, I'm much more excited about augmented reality. I think there's some good cool applications that could happen with that, but VR um remains to be seen. And even the most basic headsets right now, like the Quest 2, the cheapest is still $400. So just for somebody to just like pick up and grab, they're just still not even there yet. There's still that barrier to entry. Um,
I
so
mean, one thought I have is our reality that boring that we want to be cartoon characters in a virtual world, like all the time? Sorry, like if that's harsh, but like that's what the thing that you have on your screen, that's what I see from that. And I'm like, you know, I'm gonna sit here and count my blessings. I think reality is just fine. I'd rather play with a real kid than look like a virtual dog or something. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, or like a real dog, or meet with a real human, over Zoom rather than like as a cartoon
mhm.
character. Like I don't know.
Right.
You ever seen the movie Ready Player One?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's that. Like yeah, that's a concern. I don't know if you know what I'm trying to say here, but basically
Yeah.
the movie is like the world around everyone is in shambles, but they have virtual reality. So hey, let's go in there, and like
Right.
I'm like I hope we never get to that point because yeah, I hope we don't.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just don't. There, like with any of these things, there are certain use cases that like they use it in hospitals or for certain patients that are
Yeah,
recovering from things that that can help. Great. But as far as like a mainstream use case, I don't get it. Right. Augmented reality, I think, like, well, one, even with VR, people get sick after a while. You have to, like, there's only a certain amount of comfort that you can have of wearing a headset. So I just think there's so many barriers still to get it to be more mainstream. There's really cool use cases for what it does have. It just, as far as mainstream, I just don't see it yet. But
yeah.
I'm curious to see where things go in the future with what Apple's doing, with what other companies are doing, just to see if, like, does this go anywhere, or does it like fall off? Like 3D, was the whole big thing. I loved it, but a lot of people didn't care too much to like make it a continuous mainstream thing. So will this kind of go the same route or not? Who knows? But
I still believe there's nothing like, having a face-to-face conversation, like having a, human being next to you, feeling the warmth of another human being, that whole thing. Like, I don't know. I just, I often, and I think we've had this conversation before on our podcast, but I often wonder, like, is this really connecting people or is it disconnecting people further? That's a question I always ask myself when I look at any new technology. And I think it's a little bit of both, but another question to ask is like, how useful is it? Like to, people like yourself and myself, like how useful is it? I can see it being used for surgery. I can see it being used for construction. I can see it being used for, I don't know, arts, designing something, that sort of thing. But yeah, I think that would be a
look,
useful tool.
you can stream podcasts from here. Let's do our next podcast in the metaverse.
Yeah, why
2023,
not?
new season.
Yeah, so it's, I don't know, just yeah, I think I don't think it's for me yet. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, I'm one of those laggards. Either like I hop on the bandwagon real quick about something that I'm excited about, or I like lag behind. Like I just got an Xbox One S or One X, like yeah, like 2 months ago, and the one I had before that was 360, and I was like, okay, fine, time to upgrade. And then probably I'll buy another one, like I don't know, 3 generations down or something.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, I guess we'll have to wait and see. I am with you on VR and kind of that whole thing, and I think, you know me, I like to get on tech like Twitter and all that kind of
You
stuff. A
too.
lot of people think there's all these negatives. I like to use technology to connect with people. I'm
Yeah.
still not sold on that with VR, but I do think augmented reality will be a game changer. So that's what I'm excited for, because
I
that
think
doesn't disconnect you from reality.
I think augmented will be. I don't think virtual reality will take off quite as quickly. I think
Yeah.
augmented reality is like the footsteps to virtual reality, but how far we'll go with that, I don't know. I think that's what
Yeah.
tech companies are shooting for or like aiming for there.
You know,
But
I'm sorry.
no,
I
go
would say
ahead.
it's interesting that you say that, because I think a lot of tech companies are approaching it the opposite. They're actually using VR to then get into AR. Like that's what Apple's doing as well, because VR is a little easier to build because you have an enclosed space that you can build around. Once you're in there, they can control that environment, build the tools and kind of all the tech. AR, you have to layer it onto the real world and account for all these other scenarios and things. So that's actually Apple's plan from what the rumors are, is like next year have a headset that does both, but primarily VR. The year after a slimmer model, things like that. Year after get to AR glasses, like eventually get to AR.
And Google
But
had
yeah,
a
I don't know.
product too, right? Like when I was living in New York, this was like 8, 9 years ago. They had Google Lens, or was
Yeah,
it
there's
Google
the Google
Lens?
glasses and stuff,
Google
right? Google
Glass,
glasses,
something like
and there's
that.
the
Yeah.
HoloLens. I think is
Yeah,
what
yeah.
Microsoft has.
I just mashed it all together, whatever. But you know what I'm talking about. And I think I
Yeah,
remember hearing or see like one time somebody, like when I was in one of the New York like subway stations, the big one, I forgot. Was it like Union Station or something? And I saw somebody like walking around wearing it and stuff, and I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought since they were like testing it out in the real world and everything, I thought we'd be much more further along than we are apparently. Well, it took Google long enough to get a watch out, so I think probably give it another 10 years maybe behind Apple.
yeah, yeah.
So
I guess we'll see what that ends up morphing into eventually.
yeah, I just hope that their alternative, my only hope for technologies like this is that I hope there are alternatives available for people who don't necessarily want to be strapping on something on their face or wearing these glasses or doing something. But I don't know if that's the way we're gonna go, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Anything else to discuss? I think those are our main topics that we wanted to kind of touch on and give our thoughts on where things are at.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have anything else to add really. I think in the field of technology, like there's plenty of things. I mean, really quick, have you seen those Boston Dynamic robots, like the robot dogs? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on those?
Um, they're a little freaky to see what they can do, but it's really cool. That's I think some tech that I think could be pretty useful in different scenarios. And they've made it semi affordable from what I've heard. Like that, you can go and purchase one. Some companies have started to get them. Like it is available. I mean, obviously not like your everyday person's going to go and buy one at this point still, but um, yeah, I think they've really like um, done something cool with it. It's kind of scary to see at first, but it looks cool to me.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Um, I think it's freaky looking a little bit initially, but in construction and a couple other applications, it's interesting. But again, uh, like with any technology, I always question technology's role in our world. I know they've made other robots that like that stand upright and that can like unload things from trucks and things like that. That might be interesting, but I don't know how far away we are from all that kind of stuff and how that's gonna affect real human beings like yourself and myself. Because I think it is, and I know we don't think it will, but I think down the road, the chain of reaction or whatever you want to call it, I think it will, like the domino effect, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Yeah.
One last question. Any thoughts on self-driving cars and when they'll actually become more autonomous, like when you'll be able to hail a taxi that drives itself?
Um, Now that I do think will happen in our lifetime. I mean, I know it happens in certain cities and things, but as far as like full mainstream, um, we're getting there. I think it's going to take. I mean, for full mainstream adoption, I'd say another maybe 15, 20 years, just because of the fact that I think we're 5, 10 years away from the tech really being refined and adopted more. And then it takes people keep their cars for, so at least, whatever, 10 years or so. So then by the time next people are thinking about buying their next car and what it might be, and, it takes time for that sort of rollover, that change to happen as well. So while the tech may be available sooner, I do think it'll just take time for full, rollout of mainstream adoption. But I do think it would happen in our lifetime. I mean, it's already in certain locations. So
Yeah, interesting.
yeah.
Interesting stuff. I hope whether cars drive themselves or not, I hope they get rid of more traffic lights and find like where I live, man, these traffic lights are the longest traffic lights ever. It's like it's like you're sitting at one traffic light for like 4 minutes. It's like
Mm-hmm.
what?
Well, once
So,
once every car is self-driving, then it can just kind of just handle itself, right? I think when you still have the mix of
well,
like when you still have the mix of like the human element to it as well, then it becomes
I
tricky. But
don't
if every
know.
car is, moving along a set path, I mean,
I'm not so sure about that. I think the way the
yeah.
current grid is set up, it's very stop and go. I think the grid, the traffic, the flow of traffic and all that kind of stuff will have to change if that's how it's
Oh well,
gonna
yeah,
be.
yeah,
But
yeah. Current infrastructure is not set up for that at
no,
all, for sure.
no.
Because like you right now, you still have the human element, to it, and so that you have to have all these other things as well. But yeah, that's why I think it'll be a while, but definitely curious to see, how things develop for sure. Um,
We will see.
with that, I think we can start to wrap things up. I, definitely thank everyone for joining and listening in. And if you do happen to, watch later, post a comment, let us know what you think, and just kind of message us with your thoughts on all this tech as well. I'd love to hear, other people's perspectives and where we're at with all this technology. So let us know. And also, if you have any other ideas as we're now heading into the second year of this podcast, open
Season
to
two.
your suggestions. Yes, exactly. Season 2.
Yeah.
Um,
I would be
yeah,
interested to see, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there, but I would be interested to see what some of the viewers right now, I think there are two viewers on right now. I'd be interested to see what kind of technologies they're interested in. I don't know if you have anything to share in the chat box, but if you want to type something in real quick before we finish up, would love to see your thoughts or hear your thoughts.
yeah, for sure. Let us know your thoughts as well. You can also message us on Twitter at the Dose of Desi on Twitter, and you can also email us at the Dose of Desi pod at gmail.com.
Yeah, and as always, keep an eye on your social media for any polls and episode notifications. I think I think at this point we're looking at the first or second week in December, the weekend in December. Was it the second weekend in December? It's tentative,
I
but
think
I just want to give a
tentative, yeah, second
yeah.
weekend. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so keep an eye out for that. We'll be doing another podcast then, and yeah, I don't know if we have any final comments in the chat box. Looks like we do not. So with
Nope.
that, hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for joining us. Take care and see you next time. Oh, and before I say see you next time, happy Thanksgiving to anyone, since we won't be
Yeah.
back on until after Thanksgiving. Hope everybody enjoys their Thanksgiving holiday, and take care and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.